to ICE and prosecutors say, or definitely that's something that folks are talking about. Actually, he said he had allegiance to IS and everything like that. So Germany's AFD opposes Pride flag, but wins support after LGBTQ attack. So a lot's going on in the world, and wild berry sellers with 1.3 million Instagram followers is appealing to Russian authorities for help after the Ukrainian strike. So definitely that is something going on as the wild berries attack shake the Russian economy and shake the banking as well. And it looks like Iran considered a retaliatory strike on Ukrainian seaport is something else that was being reported as well. So a lot's going on in the world. Also, Anthony Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify at the COVID hearings. And the doctor and his diary is what is being reported in the New York Times. What Fauci's innermost musings are revealing. So Rolling Stone is saying unhinged obsession. Fauci hearing goes off the rails after he stonewalls the senators. And Rand Paul releases Dr. Anthony Fauci's diaries ahead of the hearing showdown that was taking place as well. And a flood watch was issued for New York City and the tri state area. Flood warnings were issued for eastern New York as life threatening flash flood threat shifted toward New England. So definitely there was some heavy rainfall. There was even some heavy rainfall here in North Carolina as well. And Florida executes James Duckett ahead of the second execution. So Florida carries out its first double execution in more than 6 decades. So the former Lake cop, James Duckett, was executed for rape and the drowning of an 11-year-old. So definitely that is something going on. And this was the first in the modern death penalty history where Florida had executed 2 men on yesterday. And U.S. Senate moves forward with Lindsey Graham sanctions bill. So momentum shifts to Zelensky in Washington, and inside the deal to clinch Lindsey Graham's sanction bills from hell is what the Washington Post is reporting. And like I said earlier, oil prices have definitely jumped and all along those lines. And Trump reportedly overruled his own agencies to deny disaster aid to Democratic-led states. So it looks like the Daily Beast is saying that Trump's got a jaw-dropping plot to punish blue states and that this has been exposed and everything like that. So there's also a booming backlash to AI data centers that apparently is shaping some of the midterm election. So a growing political reckoning is coming for the data centers is what a political poll is showing and all along those lines. Going to bring in Rick Rosner. We might have some others join us as well and see what he's got going on in his world and how things are going over there. I do see that ICE has opened an immigration detention center in rural North Carolina. So right here where I'm at, Governor Stein says he does not want it in our state. So ICE is working to open 4 new detention facilities with space for 5,500 detainees. And apparently one of them is going to be here. The GEO Group announces a contract for a company-owned 1320-bed Rivers facility in North Carolina, and this to be the largest on the East Coast.
So it remains hot, here and across much of the U.S. and also on fire here and in Canada. And price of gas, $4.09 a gallon, national average. This is week 13 of gas being above $4 a gallon. It went up. It was spent 11 weeks over $4 a gallon, then went under for a while. Now the past 2 weeks it's been over. Got 97 days until the midterms. Trump is still pushing to try to get the SAVE Act passed, which he says is a voter ID act, but which informed people know is a voter suppression act. Even if odds that he can get it passed are low before the midterms. Even if he somehow did, people would immediately go to court to block its implementation because there's no time to get the ID that you need to vote in the elections were the SAVE Act to go into effect. Also, people would go to court because it's unconstitutional, because the elections belong to the states.
Yeah, they definitely belong to the states and everything like that. Hey, just really quickly, because I know you're in California, Rick, and everything like that. And I remember that one of my early journalism jobs. I remember that there was a case of Gary Hart, and Gary Hart was definitely seen as somebody that was a great presidential candidate, and then he got caught in a scandal and everything like that.
He's seen as the
And his,
first.
hold on a second, his candidacy was derailed about that and all along those lines. I think I met some of the people involved with his campaign back in that day and everything like that. But now we're seeing that a Gavin Newsom, former aide Ruby Rippey, has written an essay about an affair and is offering details on their affair 2 decades ago. So I was wondering, is this going to derail Gavin Newsom's presidential race, as there is this notion of a affair with a friend's wife that has resurfaced after his notion of running for president or possibly running for president?
So it's still almost 2.5 years until the presidential election. It's hard to say what's going to shake out there. And I don't know, an affair. So Kamala Harris, the Republicans tried to take her down because she dated a politician, Willie somebody, when she was single and he was separated. Did that have any effect? Probably, because the Republicans will jump on anything. But I don't really know. But Gary Hart this happened in the mid to late 70s, and he's considered the first national politician to be taken down by a sex scandal. That before then, politicians kind of counted on the press not going there, considering what somebody was doing in their private sexual life to be out of bounds. And Gary Hart was the first guy where the press really jumped on it.
And he jumped on it and everything like that. I also saw that there are some folks, including the Kentucky governor, that are saying that McConnell should call in for a TV interview or go on camera, because Bashir is challenging Jennings and CNN to call McConnell live on air, put all the speculation to rest and everything like that, because he'd actually also said speak or resign. So he's up in the demand for McConnell's health status. So what's going on with...
All right, so this is day 44 of McConnell being AWOL. Nothing from him, no video, no audio. He was taken away in an ambulance 44 days ago. And if his seat is vacant because he's incapacitated, they need to hold a special election. And the deadline for that is August 3rd. That if they can hold the governor off from announcing a special election till August 3rd, then they don't have to have it anymore. So it's widely thought that McConnell's people are just hiding how messed up he is until August 3rd.
Well, speaking of people hiding stuff and everything like that, another story that I had read earlier, and I don't know if Sasha's got some thoughts about this, but we've talked about the Democratic Socialists, and apparently this is getting ready to come up on about a month and a half from now, the 25th anniversary. It's hard to believe that it was that long ago of the 9/11 attack and all along those lines. And it is definitely some people that are saying that Madani needs to stay away from those celebrations and all along those lines. So there's some people that are even signing the petition to have him not involved in some of the celebrations, even though he is the New York mayor and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on this notion.
Sasha wants to say something.
I'm sorry, you said celebrations. Who is celebrating what?
It's not so much a celebration. That would probably
what would you call it? Just
an observation of kind of like, I mean, it's not really a celebration when we acknowledge Pearl Harbor either, but the people do oftentimes have this acknowledgement of these catastrophes and these terrorist attacks.
A commemoration, maybe. It's not
commemoration. Sounds better.
Nothing to celebrate. It's only terrorists can celebrate their most successful art in the last 5,000 years.
I would venture that most of the people who say that Mamdani should stay away from that are racist, anti-Islamist a-holes. That Mamdani is just because Mamdani's Muslim, that has nothing to do with whether it wasn't all Muslims who committed 9/11. It was 19 loser lunatics, 18 of whom were from Saudi Arabia, who hijacked 4 planes.
And
Yeah,
apparently
but all majority of Muslims around the world celebrated that it happened, and they were dancing and clapping and with a joy. So even a lot of Muslims who did not commit all this themselves, but they were very happy to receive this information.
There's a lot of Muslim tribes that were not celebrating. I mean, it is a very big religion and all along those lines. So I don't know that a lot of the folks that I knew that were in those religions, and it's actually very much a divided religion, just like Christianity is. I mean, there are Shiites, there are Sunnis, and I can't remember which sect.
Here's what AI says. A majority of Muslims did not celebrate the 9/11 attacks. Mainstream Muslim leaders, major Islamic organizations, and the vast majority of Muslims globally and in the United States strongly condemned the terrorist attacks and mourned the victims. And I remember that the reports of Muslims dancing on rooftops in New Jersey, those were largely debunked. And I can ask AI about that. Muslims, I'm sure, in certain parts of the world danced. Iran has been calling for death to America for 50 years. So I'm sure that there were celebrations in countries that are hostile to the U.S., but Muslims live in, I don't know, probably 170 different countries around the world, and most of those countries are not hostile to the U.S. And the world has about 1.5 billion Muslims, and I don't think they universally, nor does AI think that they universally celebrated those attacks.
That's what I was saying as well. And by the way, they said despite a petition from a man whose wife was killed in the 9/11 attacks, calling for Zohran Mamdani to be excluded from the annual commemoration of the 2001 attacks, the New York City mayor is saying that he does plan to attend and definitely plans to be involved. He said, "I will proudly honor the families, the survivors, the first responders forever impacted by the horrific terror attack by standing alongside them in this year's 9/11 commemoration, affirming that we will never forget the solemn day felt by all of us who call this city home, and frankly, all of us who call this country home," Mamdani said at a press conference on Monday. So Giovanni Galanti, whose wife Grace was killed in the attack, created a petition that has nearly 14,700 signatures as of a few days ago. So it might even be up to like close to 20,000 signatures or something.
And as far as dancing on rooftops, no. Extensive investigations and news archives show no evidence that thousands or large groups of Muslims danced on rooftops in the U.S. after the attacks.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily in U.S. It's around the globe.
Okay, so okay, sure.
Egypt and Indonesia and all those Muslim countries. What's happening. If you don't want to discuss it, I'm fine with that. It's neither here nor there. So you're saying that it's a 19 people. Well, I'm saying it's a more than 19 people who are very happy and enjoying what's happened. How much, I don't know.
I mean, but okay, sure. But let's say you got 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, roughly. So say 1% of them were happy with the attacks. That means that's 15 million people.
North America difficult.
Just to point out, because I was listening to the conversation in the background, basically, you're trying to create a figment or a conspiracy around that. That's all this is. No, there were no giant swaths of individuals dancing or joyous about it. That's just not a reality. What happened was that's like saying that white people were happy that Dylan Roof shot up a black church. That's exactly what you're doing right now, Sasha. So no, you cannot take that whole generalization or that whole thing that happened where you saw one person who was crazy doing something and saying that's all a representation of this whole group of people. So that's just not true. So
my point was that it was much more than 19 people.
How many, Sasha?
Yeah.
When you said your point was that there were much more than 19 people, you're giving a generalization. You don't know how many people.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
So you saying that there might not have been much more than 19 people.
There was certainly terrorist infrastructure.
Well, the thing is, we don't know. So you're making a generalization to place blame on all.
No, I did not blame all. What I'm saying,
what you're
certain portion,
but your words,
celebrating. It was well documented at the time. Of course, now nobody wants to talk about it. But at the time, 25 years ago, it was well documented. It was pictures and so on. But again, it's neither here nor there. I don't care.
But the celebration happened in other countries that. They didn't happen in the U.S. And the idea that thousands of Muslims in the U.S. danced on rooftops in New Jersey was bullshit spread by Donald Trump.
Exactly. And that's why when we say these things and don't have the facts or figures around it, all it's doing is spreading it. And this is why you have what Mark had pointed out, individuals saying that Zoran Mamdani shouldn't be at the memorial, which is crazy. That's like saying the 3,000 people, in those 3,000 people that tragically lost their lives on 9/11, the 3,000 plus, and then multiples after that. None of them were Muslim as well. All of them were white Christian individuals. That's that idea and that mindset that's there. And we have to break that idea and that mindset and understand that all peoples were affected. Everybody was affected. And this is what we have to instill instead of trying to instill, well, there were some people. Well, how many is some? Well, I can't tell you, but I know it's some people. That some people gets broadened out to all Muslims, which we shouldn't do.
All right. So
what else are you seeing on
just one second, because let's do the math. Okay, so AI tells me there are about 2 billion Muslims in the world. There are about 2.3 to 2.6 billion Christians in the world. So, and anytime you've got a large group of people distributed around the world, the 1% biggest jerks in a group can be jerks. So with huge demographics like this, 2 billion people, 1% of 2 billion is 20 million people. So we all know, like if you meet 100 people, that one of them statistically is going to be kind of a frickin' a-hole. So if you were to meet all 2 billion Muslims or 2 billion Christians, likely 1% of them are lunatics with horrible beliefs. And so, yeah, you would see assholes being assholes.
Well, the thing is, we keep talking about the extreme beliefs of Muslims. Well, you do have extreme beliefs in every religion. But what we do and what we tend to do is, again, it's like in Christianity, the Klan is a Christian organization. It's an extreme Christian organization. That's what they claim themselves to be. I'm not saying that that's what dominates. All I'm saying is I'm pointing out the historical fact of what this group is and what they say they are. There's a lot of extremism in that Christianity because there's a large population. It doesn't mean that the majority of them is just that there are sects within that population. It's the same thing in every religion. Satanists have the same thing. They have it's a large population. There's an extremist group in that. Hinduism, all of them.
Let's bring it around to what's happening politically in the U.S. right now. There is a party called the Democratic Socialists of America.
Right.
And there's 120 of them, 120,000 of them across the U.S. compared to 50 million registered Democrats, about the same number as registered Republicans. But the Republicans are trying to group the DSA, which has among the more extreme leftist beliefs among people affiliated with Democrats. They're trying to paint all Democrats with the Democratic Socialist brush, and they're saying that if you vote for Democrats, you're voting for communism and socialism. And the DSA, I don't know their whole platform. I don't know. I didn't know they existed until like a week ago. I could have assumed, but Bernie Sanders describes himself as a Democratic. But anyway, they're not all the Republicans. They're the Democrats. They're the most extreme, large-ish, and they're not even that large. They're not even, like more than a few percent of all Democrats.
They're the Tea Party.
I want to say that their biggest push was probably doing Occupy, because I do know that there was some Democratic when I was involved with Occupy and all along those lines, and I think there were some that are even involved with some of our local politicians too, because I want to say that some of the members of Solidarity Center might be claimed as Democratic Socialists and all along those lines, but they are, like you said, a small portion and all along those lines, and they may have some views that are maybe leaning more toward socialism than they're leaning toward, but I wouldn't call them communists.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's just using a term that, as Sasha pointed out yesterday, people don't know the term socialism. They just know that it's a fad to use that word now. It's cool to use that and call somebody that. You don't know what that word means. So Democratic Socialists, they try and tie to socialism. It's not the same thing. It's communism. That's a whole different thing. Oh, it's fascism. That's a whole different thing. They don't know what the words mean, so they try and demonize it and go from there. But yes. And there's some people that are part of the Democratic Socialist Party that aren't even really there. They're just doing it because it's cool to do. It's just people are trying to jump in different buckets because popularity, or because it's the fad, or because it's going to grab them notoriety. Some people are like Bernie Sanders has always been a Democratic Socialist. He's always been that. He claimed that from a long time ago. That's why he went independent. But it's just a fad thing. That's all it is.
So there are, now AI isn't giving me exact numbers, but AI is telling me that there are 150 white nationalist groups operating across the country.
Yep.
Which probably means that there are about as many white nationalists as there are members of the DSA. So saying that all Democrats are the DSA is the same thing as saying that if you're a Republican, you're a white nationalist. You're painting the whole group with the most extremist members.
So I would say that white nationalists within the Republican Party, because the white nationalists are separate from the Republican Party, and they tell you that.
Okay.
The only reason that they jumped on Donald Trump is because he spoke the language that they enjoyed. So it's a separate party. So it's not the same as the Democratic Socialist Party.
That brings up a news story. You might remember Alex Jones, the guy who got sued for and lost $1 billion case. He's a right-wing lunatic who's made more than $1 billion selling stuff to his followers. And there was a massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School where about 2-3 dozen kids and the teachers were slaughtered. Yep. And Alex Jones is famous for harassing the families of the murdered people, saying it didn't really happen. And he was eventually successfully sued. So this guy is a right-wing lunatic rabble rouser who is now calling for Donald Trump to be impeached over the Iran war. So the current situation among the Republicans is that there is some fracturing.
There's definitely some fracturing. Hey, Sasha, just really quickly, I understand that Trump has also been going after Canada once again and everything like that. So I was wondering what you're hearing about this, because apparently he was making some other attacks in terms of terrorists and all along those lines, but he is also cracking on Carney and all in that space. But what are you hearing about this rift between Trump and Carney as you do live in Canada and have lived in Canada for a number of years?
Um, okay, well, we'll have to struggle for another, say, 2.5 years. There's no doubt about that. And Canada is slowly changing its trading partners and going more into Europe and Asia markets. And it seems to me that this, in next few weeks, maybe even days, there will be another round of negotiations of Mexico, United States, Canada trade out the deal. And it seems to me the way it goes, there will be no deal at all. So there will be absolutely no production of American cars in Canada, and all these first-rate facilities, uh, well-trained and motivated workforce will be turned over to producing Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, perhaps, vehicles. And I don't know what Trump is trying to achieve by doing that, because because Canadians were producing high quality American cars, and they were buying at least 2 million cars a year. So now, instead of 2 million cars a year of American production, they will be buying Japanese, Chinese, or whatever other cars there is. So
And
what is Trump's way of celebrating that? Now, something else I heard today earlier, not here, but I was listening to one program on TV. Trump is boasting that all these wonderful tariffs on almost all over the world, they created enormous wealth for the United States. Let's analyze those. Like, okay, so there are tariffs, say 20%, 10%, 50%, doesn't matter what. So how it works? So there is a tariff against, let's see, cheese producers in France, for example. So now this cheese they're selling to middlemen in, let's see, American distributor. Okay, so a distributor has to pay the same price to French producers as it was agreed, but he also has to pay the U.S. government, say 10 or 20, whatever it might be percent. Let's say 20%. So the 20% of the total going to U.S. government, and so the rest, the distributor has to now raise his prices in order to recover this 10, 20, whatever it might be percentages. So as a result, this product will be more expensive in US retailing stores. So American consumers will have to pay higher prices. Now, the money that went to the US government, they are not going to be used for making life of American easier. Maybe it's Medicare or education or anything else. No, it will go into producing more interceptors missiles who will be used in one attack. So it will be millions and millions of dollars spent right there. So it does not make, he might be right that US government is making money on it, but what it has to do with American people. It's the same thing like America is boasting that all the greatest corporations, Microsoft and Google and all others, they're making enormous wealth. For whom? For shareholders? Even that not correct, because they're all domesticated in places like Ireland when there is much less tax and so other. So no United States, no American consumers, nobody is benefiting from all this great American stock market. Look at these big companies or so on. American people have nothing to do with that. They will never see any money out of this great.
so I want to go back to the Chinese vehicles. So Canada has a new agreement with China that allows 49,000 Chinese vehicles to be sold in Canada at a 6.1% tariff, which is not very much, which means you can buy an entry-level vehicle for 27 to 29,000 Canadian, which is, that means you can, that's like 20 to $22,000 US, because Canada dollar is worth about 3/4 US dollar. You can get a mid mid-range family SUV for 42 to 43,000 from China, which means you're getting a pretty decent electric SUV for a little over $30,000 American. Now, if you want an American vehicle, you live in Canada. Right now, the tariff is 25%, which probably knocks out 80-90% of the Canadian market for U.S. cars.
Yeah, definitely.
And one more tariff. If you want to bring a Chinese vehicle to the U.S., there's a 100% tariff. So nobody is bringing Chinese vehicles into the U.S.
Well, the crazy part is honestly everything Sasha said is true. Everything, and what's even crazier is that if you look at tourism, for example, tourism from Canada is down 25%. So you're looking at a whole market shift because those cars that you're talking about, over in China, they're even you're looking at a car that is worth. Well, you would be charged in the U.S. in terms of if it were comparable to a car in the U.S., you'll be charged, $70,000, $80,000 for a car that's comparable coming out of BYD, Xiaomi, or one of the other Chinese companies that is costing, that would cost you maybe that $30,000. So you're looking at the average home income right now sitting in the U.S., roughly about 50 grand. Many homeowners can't afford, struggle to afford that $60,000, $70,000 car, which the average car price, if I remember, if you look it up, I think it may be around that 50,000, maybe around
before tariffs. It was 50,000. It's got to be more now.
So now, if you take and that's why the Chinese cars right now are dominating the market, and BYD is globally the number one EV maker right now, and those EVs are really beginning to take control, especially in China, because they built up the infrastructure. Honestly, Sasha, I would watch out and see if China offers one of the to start building the infrastructure in Canada the way they did in China, because the infrastructure around the EV vehicles is phenomenal. The technology and everything that they utilize, I don't doubt. And honestly, if Canada does pick up on it, and if other actual countries pick up on it, maybe even, one of those companies coming out of China, because the battery technology that they're actually pushing forth right now is phenomenal. And honestly, Dr. Sharif can talk about that technology, the battery technology, and so on and so forth, coming out of that area. So if Canada picks up on that, that will be ridiculous, because that would shoot Canada technology-wise ahead of the U.S. being able to transfer things from place to place, because we're so heavily reliant on diesel still. But the technology that they put forth and the amount, the structure itself, that could handle that whole diesel market. And you're looking at a whole energy shift, and that would affect the U.S. market, because what are we dominant in now that Trump yells about? Oil. What does oil go to? Diesel. That whole diesel market, if that shifts to EV and really that infrastructure hitting Canada per se, Mexico's next. And if that takes that hole out of there, I'm sorry.
Sasha, are you seeing new brands of cars from China on the streets where you are?
Not really. I must say that I haven't seen really many Chinese vehicles. Also, even if I would see one, I wouldn't recognize it as necessarily Chinese, because they all look very much like a normal, maybe European, more like, but still. But the more it will arrive and the more people will start driving them, then I will tell you for sure how often you can see one.
So the price of a new car has remained steady even with tariffs at $50,000. But like a full-size pickup truck, like a Dodge Ram or a Ford F-150, $66,000, which is crazy. Compact mid-size SUV 50,000, compact SUV 38,000. So if you live in a country that isn't the U.S., you can beat the prices we're paying in the U.S. For Chinese imports. And I don't know, I don't know what other countries are really stepping forward in the EV sector.
Everywhere.
Well, countries like Norway, for example, they have probably close to 100% electric vehicles simply because they find the gasoline engine cars offensive, even morally. Never mind how much gasoline they're spending to drive around. They're morally becoming very offensive to normal people. Normal people in Norway, they're all driving electric vehicles.
So I looked it up. China produces 75% of the world's EVs, and they control 80% of the raw material necessary for the lithium-ion batteries they run on. Followed by you got South Korea and Japan, you got Germany, and then you got the U.S. But it's going to be. I don't know when we can crawl out from under our tariffs, which are going to stop us from gaining market share for U.S. The U.S. used to be, not in the past 40 years, but the U.S. used to be the world leader in auto manufacturing.
And that's why right now the Chinese market cannot come into the U.S. is because of that domination and because of the hold that those companies have on the U.S. market. And they won't break through because they're dominating the bills that are being passed and so on and so forth. So like I said, the Chinese market is in terms of cars, because yes, the U.S. still kind of still dominates the car market in a lot of ways. But again, how the U.S. has fallen off in the car industry is because they're not pushing the industry in terms of coming up with innovative ideas. You got cars coming out of China, and this is the cool thing, Sasha. Like the car that shakes off snow, that'll be in the Canadian market. How much snow do you guys get? A lot. You get it. You got a car that now shakes the snow off. It's a neat thing, and it's an EV that does that. You have other makers that are coming up with interesting ideas.
But don't forget the company like Exxon, they provided millions and millions for Trump's election campaign. So he is obliged to do what's good for Exxon and its shareholders, not what's good for Americans. So here, stock of Exxon is going higher and higher. U.S. is more and more getting hooked on this horrible gasoline used for vehicles instead of EV. And so EV is going, the United States is going backwards, and they are becoming almost the most obsolete country in the world as the EVs are concerned. What a pity. Now, interesting situation is with Tesla. Okay, stock of Tesla is plummeting, as we all know, and their sales is quite unremarkable, and they're losing money. But interestingly enough, Tesla is producing some of its EV cars in China. And in China, they're no longer competitive because Chinese vehicles are simply better and less expensive. But they do produce some cars. And these cars that they are producing in China, same cars as they are producing in the United States, they are way much cheaper. So even if U.S. Consumers could buy Tesla but produced in China instead of in the United States, they would be much better off.
It'd be much
Yep.
better off, everything like that. I just wanted to get to Dr. Sharif and see what he's got going on in Bangladesh and everything like that. So, how are you doing today, and what is shaking in your part of the world? You're on mute.
Thank you. Basically, right now, Bangladesh, I told you, there are very big challenge for energy. If you see that our household, our factory, all of the things, we have a massive problem with our energy because our LNG sectors and everything come from Middle East market, and Middle East has challenge. Secondly, climate change. It's heavily affected country like Bangladesh and India. Today, I discussed with this Indian Prime Minister think tank, who actually work with these young talent pools and doing all of the research and everything. So I identify that the global communities right now, we have many challenges. The challenge come through these corporations, politics, and global financial institutions, and so on. They are bringing a lot of challenges for emerging economy, because maybe US is a very big economy. US have ability to survive, but country like Bangladesh, we are very small. We have very challenges to overcoming or survive in this challenging situation. But our prime minister is good, and he is trying to work with China, work with Malaysia to solve the complex problem. Hopefully, it will be solved. But from my understanding, those who are working with these knowledge creations and other things, we have to be united for our own self-interest. Let's say I'm from a small background. Let's say I'm a middle class family. I think Jatovi or all of you are like me in USA. So my objective is very simple: how I can survive with my community. But with all of the big corporations and trillion-dollar company, trillion-dollar things, and the big company, tech company, AI, quantum computing, all of the things actually make us very irrelevant in these conditions. And basically, the middle-class communities around the world, they are the biggest sufferer for this kind of thing. Those who have money, lot of money, they can do fight, war, next 6 years, no problem. But I have to think how I survive next 6 days. So I just want to request my friends and colleagues, we need to focus on global peace based on wisdom. Wisdom is very important. Technology come. I'm not afraid of technology. I'm a software engineer. Secondly, we need financial distribution for this grassroots level community. And thirdly, Western world, they need to understand the global community properly. When they elect their government, when they take decisions, when they go for industrial revolutions, what they call singularity or whatever it is. But now it's a very, very, very challenging moment for emerging economy. I'm afraid of it. Thank you.
No problem.
A question to you, Dr. Sharif. When you're talking about global peace, and you have a country like United States, which starts wars almost every few months here and there, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Iran, whether it's he wants Greenland, he wants this and that. How you approach, practically speaking, the problem of the world peace when you have a country like United States?
Excellent question. That's why my World Talent Economic Forum, even with this Indian Prime Minister office, I offer wisdom leadership. We need wise leader. When we select our leader, he must need to be wise. He need empathy, sympathy. He has to understand 90% of the people's life. And he need ability to contribute for human progressions. He need to sit with the grassroots level people, touch their heart, understand their lifestyle, financial values and everything. Then we can make a proper deal for the global peace. You are absolutely right. So that's why I'm taking practical actions with wisdom leadership, because I cannot change the world, but maybe I can change my community's few young people. And I'm very happy. I have many good people from North America, from Japan, from Europe, from Africa, from South America, from Asia Pacific also supporting my initiative. Wisdom is something we are missing long times. Without wise leader, you cannot achieve global peace. I'm completely agree with you. Thank you.
Well, it's a very convenient platform that you choose to work for wisdom leadership. In reality, it's absolutely unachievable situation. However, it creates a certain platform for you, and nobody will really heavily criticize you for saying that because you're saying the right things. But they're unachievable things, absolutely. So you are in a castle of your own, and if you feel comfortable in that castle, good luck to you. I have no problem with that. But in reality, you will not get, especially in the United States, you will not get wisdom leaders because it's all money generating machine to create a following through direct donations from giants like Exxon Mobil, for example, that they put millions of dollars into, for example, Trump's campaign, and Trump is becoming a big enemy of all the progress, whether it's electric cars or anything like this. So where do you get the wisdom against millions of dollars from Exxon Mobil? How you balance this?
Sasha, another good question, but misunderstanding about, I want to say, emerging economy. Look, if you ask me, I born in a very small place. It's called Rajbari. I do not know, you never heard this name or something. Rajbari means King's Palace. I have 1 million people in my community. 1 million people. It's a very small country, very small place. My uncle is a parliament member. He is a cultural minister for Bangladesh, state minister. These 1 million people, trust me, this Exxon Mobil, Apple, Amazon, all of the big countries, big peoples and the big company, there is no impact in their life. They go for agriculture. They go for small, medium enterprise. They go for simple jobs, maybe government jobs. They go for beautiful cultural activities. You know, in near Rajbari, the Nobel Prize winner, Rabindranath Tagore, he has his own house near Rajbari. It's called Kutibari. So even they have ability to win Nobel Prize. They have the records to win Nobel Prize. That's why I'm sharing the confidentialities and other. There is a world in the emerging economy. What is happening, this and that, there is no things. So I choose these grassroots level communities. And it's work. You can come to Bangladesh and you see thousands of the young people, their family, university come up with the things. Corporations come up with their land. Government come up with their policy that, okay, this is exactly the right things we need to focus. Even India, it's not bad. Indian Prime Minister of his think tank, Ballo Rog, they also come. They say, hey, this is interesting idea. This is the interesting thing. Why don't we work together? We can collaborate. Not only that, in Africa, in Spain, in France, in everywhere, the good community, they come and join. I'm very much confident if you people join in these revolutions, we can make a very meaningful contributions for this emerging economy. And even you see the Gen Z, they are very, very effective. Even in India, the Indian Prime Minister as well as their education ministers is very powerful. But because of these Gen Z revolutions, he resigned. Even in Bangladesh, because of this Gen Z revolution, the most powerful Prime Minister, she resigned. It happened around Asia Pacific. Trust the Gen Z, the new generations. Definitely trust technologies, and they have intellectual ability, and they can be wise. You never know. All of the powerful companies and everything, our young generations can overcome. They have ability. They prove it. They prove it in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Nepal, in India. Everywhere they prove it. So please trust the ability of the youth, what I call talent economy. It's happening everywhere. Thank you.
It's not happening in the United States, as you know. Therefore, whatever you're trying to achieve in your situation, your circumstances, it's admirable, I can tell you that. But it's not applicable at all to United States. So therefore, your efforts about world peace or so on, they could be limited to your community or some other communities you can affect one way or another, but it's beyond any means to reach United States. And if you cannot reach United States, then where is the world peace?
Sasha, just one small point I just want to add, just a very important discussions I'm observing, and I'm very happy that I'm learning from there. Look, if you see the right global power balance, USA is not alone the most powerful country. There is China, there is India, there is Russia. There is more balancing world we are observing right now, more power distributions happening. So I completely agree with you that maybe right now it's not create any impact in USA. On the other hand, I want to say USA power is declining.
So
With
I
this,
wanted to,
yeah.
I actually wanted to chime in and actually kind of agree with what Dr. Sharif is saying, and also point out that I think there's an old adage. There's an old adage that we, it takes one grain of sand can make a mountain, and that is the logic that happens. That we're discussing right now. And I think when you're saying that it won't reach the U.S., I think there is a movement over all things. And the best analogy or the best example of this is talking about money. Bitcoin is here because they wanted decentralized money. The reason streaming is taking off better than a lot of the movies and everything else, and why you have these streamers that are big time now, is because people are starting to decentralize what they look at. So it's not just one entity that you're watching, one channel. You're not watching just one news station. You're watching all this other stuff on YouTube. You're watching all these other things on TikTok. So that one thing that Dr. Sharif is doing, how I think in broad terms, true, it's not hitting the U.S. In minor terms, I think it is. I think there are parts that what he's doing could honestly inspire a particular amount of people, especially having a community of 1 million people. That's a backing that people are actually following. I mean, so that one drop of water or that one stone that hits the water is going to create a ripple across the whole lake because of the way it goes. And that's
if you would believe up to 1,000 years old, maybe you could see results of it, but not enough.
Honestly,
I do not agree. Sasha, I do not
it's
agree.
Moving quicker. I think right now, because of the youth and because the youth actually looks at more things than just because growing up, we didn't have the internet. The internet reaches the whole world. Yeah. We had the Arab Spring that was pushed off of TikTok, or not TikTok, but Twitter, and Twitter is a global thing, and people were posting things, and we saw what was going on, and people became outraged because of that. So people are starting to see that, and especially in the youth.
Right. So the U.S. is fixable. The U.S. can recover once we get the jackasses out of power. We'll be able to do that. I don't know. I just want to touch on the war really quickly. So the oil market shouldn't listen to Trump because Trump just says whatever. But the oil market was down $5 a barrel yesterday because Trump said ceasefire. Today it's back up to 90, up 7.5% because Trump says he's going to beat the crap out of Iran. Saudi Arabia has joined the war, striking Iran. And one more thing is the U.S. has a strategic oil reserve. The U.S. owns, like, I guess, hundreds of millions of barrels of oil that it can use to pad consumers by releasing the reserve into the market to help protect consumers against high gas prices. That reserve is now at a 40-year low. So our cushion is disappearing.
Yeah, and I think I mean our energy supply is dwindling, and as much as we want to overlook what's taking place in Bangladesh, that because their energy supplies and they're a small place and we don't, and they rely we ought to look to places like Bangladesh and other areas because we are going to run into that same energy crisis. And this is why, honestly, again, when I pointed out about the whole energy infrastructure, if China is redoing their infrastructure right now in terms of their energy, with the large solar areas and the wind turbines and all the other things, China's actually doing a lot of forward thinking. Canada was doing a lot of forward thinking with the fusion technology and bringing that about. It's just that, yes, what Dr. Sharif has pointed out is true. Yeah, the U.S. is in decline. Everybody sees that the U.S. is in decline. Yeah, what's happening right now with the president that we currently have, he's exacerbating the problem and actually pushing us further in decline.
That's something that David Walker talks about quite often, is this decline that we're suffering and everything like that. The one thing that I was going to get to, and we're going to wind down so we can talk about it on tomorrow and everything like that. But Jacoby, I know that you've oftentimes, as has Rick, talked about the messaging of the Democratic Party, and I had run across a Instagram post from Vernetta Austin, I believe is her name, and everything like that. It was her and a state senator where they were actually using comedy and also making an attack. They were also using some profound language, and I was actually going to play that to see what people's reactions were and whether that is a tactic that can work for the Democratic Party. But we can talk about that on later on show and everything like that, because I stumbled across that on Instagram last night, and I actually found it quite humorous and quite effective and everything like that. But it was two of our state senators that were making a comic attack on the Republican Party and everything like that. So I don't know if you've seen that post, Jacoby, but it was definitely out there in June and everything like that, and it's still out there circulating. But we can talk about that as to whether that's an effective mode of politics for the Democratic Party.
Okay, see you at 1:00 on Financial Show. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.